Michael Cohen has been convicted. He's in prison, but if he has information, which according to them, he had information of things that Trump had said about Epstein, information he knew about Epstein that had come from Donald Trump, he could potentially trade that for a lighter prison sentence.
There you go. I'm talking to Ellie Leonard, folks. She is the Panicked Writer, a fantastic Substack. Please subscribe. She has a special on. It's called the Terrible Capitalist Special, where $3.75 a month, which is super cheap. I'm going to put the link below. So this is Ellie, and as you know, Ellie has been on the show before. People love her. She is a professional transcriber, amongst many other things, and she has gone through every single published Epstein document, and not just gone through it, but analyzed it and posted it on her fantastic Substack. And so today, I'm calling this the Epstein Files. Donald Trump, Michael Cohen, Katie Johnson, and Sasha Riley. So we're going to go through all of it. And I think because a lot of people have asked, Sasha Riley, what's that? Katie Johnson, who's she? What's happening with Cohen? So let's just start with the Michael Cohen of all, because it was big news, I think, over the weekend. I don't even remember. It was late. Right? I went on late. Lev was driving back home. Zev was like, I want to talk to you, bro, but my wife will divorce me. I didn't even reach out to you because I know you have 4 kids.
Well, Lev was texting me at 2 a.m. going, we got him.
And that's why I'm like, I'm not even going to bother Ellie. Yeah. She has 4 kids.
Yeah.
And then we talked to you on email. So for those who don't know, for those who are confused, can you explain to them what's happening with Michael Cohen and how it is directly tied to the Epstein Files?
Okay. So we had a little get together, I think it was on the 18th of December, where we were doing a breakdown panel of Trump giving kind of a nothing burger speech, 21-minute speech. Michael was on there, Zev was on there, I was on there, Nick came on after I did, you were on before me. I'm trying to think if there was anybody else on there with us, but at some time toward the end of the conversation, we're about to log off, we're about to go to sleep. Zev had just asked kind of a vanilla question about the Epstein files, and Michael Cohen went on the defense. And I thought, I don't think any of us were ready for it or expected it, but it was kind of a blow up. After that, he spoke with Lev. He said some really horrible things about Zev. Again, more defense, more yelling.
It was on Zev's show, right? It was Zev's channel.
Yes, it was Zev's channel. Zev was not doing, it was like, I don't think it was even confrontational. It was very calm. It was Zev. He's a calm person. And then, days go by, they're dealing with the kind of aftermath of that. And that was weird. That was really complicated, trying to work it out. And then I had been crowdsourcing my Substackers to dig through the Epstein files with me. Because I don't come here with a whole lot of experience in doing this. So I figure if I can do it, we can all do this. And so we've all just been digging. I've been giving them my Dropbox links to the files, and we've just all been digging and kind of going over what little pieces we can find. And one of the things that we found was that somebody sent me an email, and they asked me, to remain anonymous, and that's fine. But they sent me this email that was from, I think it was from this last drop. I don't know if it had been published before that, but it was from this last drop, and it was from the second file. And we dug through and I found it. I made sure it actually existed in the files. And it was an email from Michael Cohen's lawyers that was talking about this thing called a Rule 35, which basically means Michael Cohen has been convicted. He's in prison, but if he has information, which according to them, he had information of things that Trump had said about Epstein, information he knew about Epstein that had come from Donald Trump, he could potentially trade that for a lighter prison sentence.
There you go.
This was news to most of us. But again, I'm not a legal mind. I'm not super highly qualified. So usually my go-to is I'm like, hey, Zev, I found something. What do you think? And I give it to him and I kind of let him analyze it. And then he comes back and he goes, whatever he does. He came back and he was like, that's fire. And then he passed it along to Lev, and then Lev, has been doing what Lev has been doing. But this is a big deal apparently. And then I'm just, because I'm a very glass half full person. I'm thinking, that maybe this is Michael Cohen's chance to come clean. He could do really great things if he was totally honest. He knows a lot of information. I'm a very Pollyanna person sometimes. And then you guys went on and like all hell broke loose. Like Lev was in my text messages, and then the next morning my phone's blowing up, and I saw that Michael Cohen had gone on a press junket on all conservative news, and I just thought that's a very odd thing for somebody who's innocent in all this, like to go on a press junket and start releasing all this stuff. And so because everything was so crazy, I was like, I'm going to step back for a minute. I turned my phone off for the day. I did some family stuff, and I kind of came back that evening to check in, and it's turned into something else. Like it's I turn on Joyanne Reid. I read like JoJo from Jers. Like I'm reading all these things, and I'm like, this is actually a thing. This is actually a big thing. And I don't know where it goes from here, but it's something that didn't go away. And so I'm just kind of waiting.
Yeah, and what happened was Michael Cohen, then goes on his Substack and posts a piece that went viral on right-wing media and seemed very coordinated, because then Donald Trump responded to it. And he then says, oh, magically 7 years later now, let me just tell you all that I was coerced. He used the word coerced, which is the same language that Lisa Murkowski used to talk about the coercion of the DOJ against Jerome Powell. And he goes, Alvin Bragg and Letitia James coerced me.
They made me do it.
Yeah, they're like, what? How come you sat on this for 7 years? And what did they coerce you into doing? And so that means you lied? Yeah. If you lied, what did you lie about? It was very, very odd. The fact that he now said this a week after essentially breaking ties with all his allies over the Epstein Files, because apparently he was on also with Joe Walsh, and Joe was like, huh?
Yeah.
And then he was also with Acosta, and Acosta was like, this is weird. And again, folks, what Ellie is saying, thank you for that recap.
Yeah.
Some people said to me, why are you on with Michael Cohen? I'm like, I don't know, man. Zev invited me. I can't control.
Yeah, it was totally wild. I was just like, oh, hi.
yeah, literally. I was like, all right, it was going to be Ellie and Zev. Yeah. The next time I know it's Zev, Nick, Lev, and then Michael pops on, and he was being a little weird and rude. I did my part. I leave. Ellie comes on, and this happens. And so to me, Ellie, a Rule 35 is literally they're telling the prosecution, yo, I got something you might have. Let's quid pro quo. Let's commute this. That's literally what it is. It's information to commute your sentence. So Michael was in prison. It's 2019. It's like right before COVID. Jeffrey Epstein gets arrested. Michael's like, oh, because folks, are you telling me that his attorneys on their own are just sitting there and bullshitting Ellie and calling up, the SDNY and saying, without Michael Cohen's knowledge, we're going to offer, this quote. So that means Michael was probably sitting there saying, yo, tell them I got stuff. I've heard things. So to me, the question is, what does he know? What does he know?
Like, what does he not know? The guy worked for Donald Trump for 14 years. During the time when Epstein was public knowledge, it was right after their alleged friendship broke up. Trump is not a quiet person. Michael Cohen, it was his fixer. Like, there's, because originally, when we were first talking, he was saying he'd never heard like the name Epstein come out of Trump's mouth in the entire time they knew him. And I was like, that feels impossible. Like that just, and I remember thinking like, you didn't even need to say that. I would have believed you more if you hadn't said that. But now that you're saying that, I don't believe you anymore. And so, and then, and I was telling this, I don't remember who I was telling this to, but like during all this time, when Michael Cohen was really in the news a few years ago, like I'm always been very passionate about politics. I pay attention, but I was not watching a lot of TV. I had like newborns and toddlers everywhere. And so I was kind of sticking to the basics, doing my homework, that kind of thing. Now, going back and watching some of these interviews that he gave, like he was very cruel to a lot of the people that he spoke to. He was very he had a very dark presence with a lot of especially female journalists that he spoke with. And I remember thinking like, oh, I didn't realize that this is the personality of the person that I've been talking to, let alone, I mean, I knew he was fairly known fairly well for being dishonest, but like the personality that came out in those interviews is somebody that I don't ever want to talk to.
Yeah, and not only that, I remember this is even before the Tara Palmieri interview, his blow up with Zev. When it came to Epstein, my ears have been very, very, if you will, attuned to what people have said. And I remember a couple of months ago, it's something that I listened to it and I
Mhm.
put in my, I deposited it in my brain, not to forget. His
Right.
kind of dismissal of it and the fact that he didn't offer anything and the fact that he kind of went over, I'm like, that's interesting because surely he must know something. He was his
Right.
personal fixer. He's a man who literally went in jail because him and Donald Trump falsified business identification. Donald Trump is individual number one. Michael Cohen paid off Katie McDougal and Stormy Daniels on behalf of Donald Trump. That was his job. So
Mhm.
you're telling me this entire time he doesn't know about Donald Trump and his affinity for women and young girls and Epstein? Kind of weird.
He wasn't
So
like vice president of like the pageant association or something too. Like it's completely impossible that he's unaware of what's going on.
And this is where Katie Johnson comes in. So
Yeah.
talk to us for those who don't know who Katie Johnson is. What
Okay.
is the
So
pseudonym of Katie Johnson, rather?
yeah. So Katie Johnson originally came in 2016, I think in April. April is when she brought her suit. Her lawyer is Lisa Bloom of the Bloom Group. I have spoken with other lawyers of the Bloom Group. Um, and she brought this case against Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. She said she was 13 years old. It's a very, very graphic case. She talked about other players that were involved, people that she said disappeared, and honestly, like not in a way that she knew that something terrible had happened to them, but just that she had never been able to find them again. And it was just it was the worst of the worst case scenario for one of these child abuse stories that came out of Epstein and also involved Trump. Um, when she first came in and she started this suit, she went under the pseudonym Katie Johnson. She came back and she went under the pseudonym Jane Doe. So that's the thing where I think you get the gray area with Michael Cohen is she was a Jane Doe, but she wasn't originally a Jane Doe. She was a Katie Johnson. Um, my question, I think, for this case with Michael Cohen is that the whole thing occurred during his time when when he was Donald Trump's personal attorney. So when he is saying like, well, it couldn't have been that person because it was this other Jane Doe who I went to her house and her house was actually a parking lot, which it's like, why are they sending Michael Cohen to a Jane Doe's house, which sounded sketchy to me in the first place. But even if that's true, even if that's not the same Jane Doe, that doesn't matter. Like she was around, this case was around while he was Trump's personal fixer. So let's say all that is true. He could have still been the person to be giving her threats to get her out. And she eventually dropped her suit like 2 days before the election.
There you
So
go.
it's a very sketchy and uncomfortable thing. And it surprised everyone because she was supposed to give a press conference and she was going to reveal who she was. And she was like all ready for it. And then 2 days before the vote, she backed out because she was receiving death threats. So it's like, I don't know where the death threats came from, but for Michael Cohen to say that he knew nothing about it and it didn't exist because he was involved with this other Jane Doe, he could have been involved with that other Jane Doe, but that doesn't mean that he didn't know who this person was.
Yeah, and this is where, we don't know, and so this is where we go into what we speculate.
Conjecture, yeah.
Yeah. Now we look at what we speculate. Okay, you trust the evidence of your eyes. You try your best to connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Cohen is Trump's fixer. Michael Cohen went to jail because on behalf of his client, his only client, individual one, he goes and pays off Stormy Daniels and I think her name was Katie McDougal, right?
Mm-hmm.
The model before or during the 2016 election. You falsify business records, right? You want to hide that information about the affairs, right? A jury of his peers holds Donald Trump guilty on 34 counts. A star witness was Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen then goes to jail. He gets let out because of COVID. Then he suddenly becomes resistant. Okay, he plays the part for 7 years. I try to have faith in people. 7 years is a long time. He says all the right things. But you look at the timeline and you look at what you said based on his own records, the own interviews, what women have said. He was rough and tough. He came in, he pressured them, he threatened them. He knew where the bodies were buried. He dealt with all these terrible people, right? So
Right.
Karen was her first name. Karen McDougal, thank you.
Yeah.
And so if he did that with Karen, if he did that with Stormy Daniels, if this was his reputation, if this is what he admitted to doing, if this was his role, then at the same time, if a Katie Johnson all of a sudden backs up. Who in the Trump universe then went to Katie Johnson and threatened her? And why, oh, why is Michael Cohen so sensitive about Epstein that he literally blows up on camera at the most anodyne questions asked by, Zev wasn't probing like Tara had no, Tara was doing her job. She had every right to say that. But, apparently Walsh wasn't trying to be an asshole. Acosta wasn't being an asshole. You were there with Zev. He wasn't being an asshole. Clearly, a normal person just doesn't get triggered and melt down like this unless there's something there, Ellie.
Well, it's interesting because the first time, that was the first time I actually met Michael Cohen. But prior to that, I had been working on the Katie Johnson, or no, I had been working on the Maxwell proffer. So when she was talking with Todd Blanche and she was giving her interviews in July so she could move and get upgraded to a better prison, she had named Jane Doe. She had named a Jane Doe and they didn't redact it. And I was trying to figure out, what are the consequences of that? What can I do about that? Can we go, who do I contact? Turns out nobody can do anything about it. But I had been talking about this on my Substack, and then Michael Cohen had been doing a live. And so I went and I watched his live, and, Substack shows when you show up in a live. Yeah. And everybody started talking about this thing that I had been posting about. And all of a sudden, whatever he was talking about, he completely changed his tune and started getting really defensive and upset. And he's like, I don't know who this Ellie Leonard person is. I don't know what she's talking about. Da, 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 da. Wow. And I just remember thinking, I've never met him before. I'm not sure what's happening. And then I realized later he thought I was talking about Katie Johnson. And I wasn't even talking about Katie Johnson. It was a completely different person. And I remember walking away from that feeling so unsettled, why did he get so upset about Katie Johnson when that's, I wasn't even talking to him. That's not even what I was writing about. But there's something there. And then when I came back and I was on this live with Zev, it was about Katie Johnson. He got really, really, really upset about it. And nobody's pushing him and telling him you did something horrible in this case. But it's the mention of her name. And he really, really gets upset, which then leads you to believe that there's a there. There's something complicated that we don't know all the details, which isn't surprising. You just, I cannot emphasize enough that people who lived in this world, whether it was politics, whether it was finance, whether it was media or whatever in New York City, all knew Jeffrey Epstein. They could not avoid him. They didn't mean they were best friends with him, but he was in their circles. So to walk away and say that you'd never heard of him, you knew nothing about him, just makes me more suspicious.
And it makes me very suspicious as well. And with Katie Johnson, what do we know about her right now, Ellie?
We don't know anything. We don't know where she is. We don't know what she's doing. We don't know, basically when she left, and that case ended. I wish she would come forward. I wish she would feel safe enough to come forward, but you have to imagine that the level of threats that she received was enough for her to completely disappear. I don't know if she settled with anybody. We just don't know anything about her. She just absolutely disappeared off the face of the earth.
And also, you can't blame her. Look at Virginia Giuffre. Look at what she went through. Virginia Giuffre was mocked, ridiculed. She on both continents. You had Prince Andrew calling her a liar. You had, Epstein attacking her, and then she allegedly died by suicide, but not before writing a memoir. And folks, if there was no there, I always want to remind people that Virginia Giuffre, the week before her book was about to be published, there's a reason why Andrew is no longer a prince, is because he got stripped of his title. And for those who are in America or not, don't know anything about British royalty and British politics, it ain't a small thing to strip royalty of their title. This is huge. So if there was no there, Prince Andrew would still be Prince Andrew instead of pedophile Andrew. And so I don't blame Katie Johnson, all these women, because right now they're probably looking at this and they're like, what more do you need to see? You all know that this man is covering it up. This man has missed all deadlines. They haven't released the Epstein Files, and he's much rather comfortable literally blowing up NATO and blowing up the world than releasing the Epstein Files. So I'll just stay quiet.
Right. And I mean, going back to the British family, their unsaid motto is never complain, never explain. They don't get involved in controversy ever whatsoever. They also are, I don't know if I'd say they were co-owners in the tabloids, but I do know that King Charles does business in the tabloids. They go to him first before things are released. Like they're completely involved in all that. So for them to actually step forward and make a decision like that is a big deal. I question if it doesn't cover up some other stuff to save other people. I don't know that. That's just conjecture. Um, so yeah, this case with Trump and the idea of the DOJ now no longer needs permission to do whatever the hell they want. Yeah, it doesn't sit well. I'm, and it doesn't make us go, oh, then he must be guilty. Like we just are already there. We're just already there. He's guilty on a lot of levels. I don't think he even has a problem with the things he did as far as women and girls are involved. I think he has a problem with people finding out about the money laundering aspect of this, which is really, really huge. That's another half of the story.
Can you talk to us about the money? Because I've been saying for a while that, first of all, you have the rape and the sex trafficking, but this country seems to hate women and they don't care
Right.
because they literally voted for a rapist who bragged about grabbing women by the pee and it was held liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll and defaming her. And this country's like, that's fine. And this is also not even talking about the 24 women who've sexually accused him or the fact that he walked in on Miss Teen USA contestants while they were teenagers or the fact that he partied with a pedophile. But I digress. Yeah, this country's like, meh. You know, I do think there's a money trail. Talk to us about the money trail, the JP Morgan of it all, the Deutsche Bank, the Bear Stearns.
Okay, well, where to begin? Okay, so I think even if you're not a big legalese kind of a person, I'm really not a legalese kind of a person. If you can find the U.S. Virgin Islands versus the JP Morgan court case, I find it to be one of the most interesting reads. It is not dull. It is not dry. It is kind of, you know, fireworks and excitement. Because they were angry. They were angry, supposedly, that all this stuff happened on their property in the Virgin Islands at Little St. James. And so you get all of a sudden, you get these. So
the rape was fine, but the rape on their property, that's
right,
what was bad.
Which they did not know what's going on. Wash, they knew nothing the whole time. Which okay. So then you get these people who are like forensic financial analysts who go back and they look at all the JP Morgan records. Now, what you have to think about, if you go back to like 2008, we had the financial crisis, right? We lost a lot of banks, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or whatever they call it. Like everything kind of disappeared, crumbled to the ground, except one. And that one was JP Morgan. And JP Morgan like flew. They had great success. They made more money during the financial crisis than anyone else. And so they started to look into this. Like there's piles and piles and piles of emails of all the interactions for the people working at JP Morgan while Jeffrey Epstein was there. He had 134 bank accounts. He would go in and make bank accounts for women and girls who didn't come with him. He could make a bank account somehow without them there. He didn't need their birthday. He didn't need their social security numbers. He could just make them a bank account, start putting money into it. Now, he was not putting money into it for these women and girls. He was actually most likely shipping money out of the country to somewhere else. Because if he was paying girls for these activities, then he was paying them under the table with cash so that there was no money trail. But there still is a money trail because he would take out certain amounts over and over and over again, the exact same amount, and have it in cash. So there's that part of it. A big part, you know, Epstein was aware in his emails to an extent. He was aware that he was being monitored and surveilled. There were certain things that he would talk about. There were certain things he absolutely would be like, you know what, we got to get on the phone and talk about this later. But one of the things that he was happy to talk about, no matter where, was the sale of this place called La Maison de l'Amitié, which is a Palm Beach property. It's a very large Palm Beach property. And it was ultimately the reason why he broke off his friendship with Donald Trump. He went in to try to buy this property. I think it was in foreclosure. He tried to buy it for $30 million. Trump, I think, was like going, oh, yeah, we should go look at it together. You know, they were just being buddy-buddy about it. And then he found out that Trump went behind his back and purchased it for $44 million. Now, he was very clear about the fact that Trump didn't have $44 million to purchase a house. And so he was questioning in the emails, like, where did he get $44 million? And then a couple of years later, Trump flips the house to a Russian oligarch for double the amount. which is just, it smells, you know what I mean? And that sale was managed by Michael Cohen. So that is something that he's openly talked about. He was there when that
Mm,
happened.
mm.
And so there's just a lot of very weird things where money exchanged hands. We think about all the court cases with Trump about where he's blown up about how much money he has versus how many taxes he's paid. All that stuff is in there, and you see more of Epstein's financial stuff. But when you start to look at it, you realize that all the same people who are paying Epstein are paying Trump, are paying all these other big wigs at the top, Glenn Dubin,
Mm.
all these major players, and Epstein is buying houses, but he's putting other people's names on the deeds, and like there's just so much fishy stuff going on that I think that's what people are scared about. I'm sure they're scared about being caught in a sex scandal, but they're really scared about the financial racketeering because at the time they just thought we're way up here, nobody's going to pay attention because everybody else is just trying to survive the financial crisis. We're just, off being billionaires.
And it connects financial institutions. It connects different countries. It connects many powerful people. Because, folks, why did J.P. Morgan still do business with a convicted pedophile?
Right.
Right?
They did until
Jamie
2015.
Jamie Dimon has never answered for that. Deutsche Bank, Bear Stearns, all the people who were there. Leslie Wexner still alive. Folks, why did he give hundreds of $1 million to Donald Trump? Who's the other one? Leon Black. Also, all these Russian mafia, Lev just said Russia. I think Russia's in there. Israel's in there. So you got different countries. You got different mobsters. You got different political entities. You got different economic entities. You got billionaires. That's why I think at the end of the day, it's the rape and the sex trafficking leads to a money trail that connects so many different people, which is why Donald Trump would rather blow up NATO, send the United States into a war with our allies, rather than just release the Epstein files. And notice they'll do distraction after distraction after distraction. Folks, two things can happen at the same time. They can further their imperialistic plans and distract. So example, even though the Venezuelan dictatorship change, because that's what they did, they just brought in another dictator they like, was mentioned in Project 2025, he did it the day that they were supposed to explain why they redacted the Epstein files. And we still don't have any explanation, right? So he will I think every single day he's like, oh, you want to talk about the Epstein files? I want Cuba. I want Cuba. You want to talk about the Epstein files? How about South Africa? Oh, I'm going to go to South Africa because there's so much there. Lev, I told Lev he can come in, but before Lev comes in, I do want to talk about Sasha Riley.
Yes.
Tell me about Sasha Riley. Okay, and there's one thing here, folks, for those who've watched The Left Hook, especially with the Epstein files, especially the last 6 years, I try to be very mindful and careful of conspiracy theories. And with the Epstein files, I shared the fantastic reporting done by Julie Brown and others, right? But at the same time, you heard about QAnon and the deep state and the Jews using all these people to replace white people. And, QAnon ran on the conspiracy that Donald Trump promoted that all of us are devil-worshipping child rapists. I'm not making this up, folks. And that, in part, radicalized Ashley Babbitt and violent insurrection. That's also radicalized Vance Bolter. No one talks about him. I remember him. The man who was a radical MAGA supporter with a list of 70 Democrats, and he shot and killed Melissa Hortman, her husband, and her dog, right? I say all this, Ellie, because when it comes to the conspiracy theories around this, I always want to be careful and clear about what's fact versus what's speculation based upon credible evidence and, intelligent connections we can make. So Sasha Riley, I was waiting. But then once you wrote about it, Sasha Riley, I'm like, this is now, I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Please talk to us about Sasha Riley and why it's been trending.
Okay, so Sasha Riley is someone who came forward as a survivor. I have known about this story a lot longer, I would say, than a lot of people. I didn't realize that had blown up recently. I kind of thought it had gone away a little bit. Again, this is something that and this is not to say that it's a conspiracy theory, but when you hear a story that sounds extreme, but it also aligns with your views and your values, people tend to cling to it and they tend to run with it and they tend to promote it. And it doesn't really matter which side of the aisle we sit. We always have to do our homework. And the reason why is because, if this is a credible case, we want to give it validation and we want to show why it's valid. But if it's not a credible case, then it takes away from the credible cases. And so with every story that comes forward, we have to do our homework and we have to look into the background and we have to talk about it. And I know that a lot of, in the last couple weeks, you'd see a lot on social media of like, why are journalists not talking about this story? And why are the survivors not talking about this story? And where is everybody? And why are they not talking about this story? And it's because we were researching the story and we were making sure we get as close to right as we possibly can. Again, we will, in the end, the conclusion will be your own. But I'm releasing a piece tonight that shows my findings. And I come at this as an unqualified person. I'm not a person in the legal world. I am not a journalist, but I do know how to do my research. I do know how to do genealogy. I do know how to look into record keeping and marriage licenses and death certificates and like all the things needed to line things up and say, is this possible? I was doing anatomy scans to study this one. I'm like, is this possible in the human body for this to occur? Like I did a lot of homework. And I'm prepared that it's not going to make everybody happy what I write tonight. Or it may give people a little bit of relief to say, oh, okay, that's what I was thinking, but I was afraid to talk about it. I've already had people jump in my DMs upset that I'm writing about it tonight, or that I'm not doing it the right way, or I'm saying something wrong. All I can do is present something as credibly as I possibly can, but also say that this is my opinion and this is the research that I did. It doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that it's 100%, but I did my best to go back and do all the findings to make sure that I got it as close to right as possible. And so I'm going to release that at 8:00 tonight. But the case is very interesting. It's a guy who is a 3-tour in Iraq veteran. He was born in the 70s. He claims that he was part of like a child killing farm that involved Trump and Epstein in Oklahoma. He came away as the only, according to what I received way back when, he came away as the only witness, that the other witnesses had died, and that they were looking for all these police records to back up his story. I had to be really careful about what I could present because I didn't want to present something that wasn't public. But I did my best to really, really do my homework, look up the names, look up the places, look up the police records that were presented, and then present my findings. And that's as best as I can do. Not everybody's going to be happy with it, but I just think it's time that we start to talk about it.
Yeah, and so that's why, listen, I don't know, you've teased it out, so that's going to be on later tonight on Ellie's Substack, but the reason I haven't ran with it is because people who've been following Epstein, people who I trust, haven't verified it yet.
Right.
And I never want to be the one, you can easily make up a lot of stuff and gin up traction and traffic, but do you want to use the same tactics of the people who are leading us towards fascism and disinformation, right? So I think err on the side of caution, be truthful. Right. And there's enough there already, folks. Like, right. Don't worry. Like, this is a cover-up happening in real time. Like, these people raped girls. Most likely, I'm saying most likely, Donald Trump raped girls. And he, sex trafficked, and he's parenting pedophiles. So you don't want to throw in more chum there that is outlandish just to run with it. You want to vet it, and you also yes, we're dealing with liars, and yes, we're dealing with shameless people. But I'm sure, Ellie, there's something about our own integrity and our own credibility that is important, right? So this is why I've just proceeded with caution. And I think it's always good to proceed with caution, and especially when you're dealing with victims. Do you really want to put stuff out there, and expose them?
If it's not true, then it hurts the people who are actually fighting for justice. And I will say, after I wrote this, I spoke with several journalists who are much more experienced and much closer to the Epstein story than I am. I ran it by them. They read it. They gave me the green light. Like I got a lot of backup before, because I was nervous. I was nervous to publish this because it is such a hot topic. People are very passionate about it. And I know my credibility is on the line writing it, but all I can do is tell the truth for what I find, or just say, like, I couldn't find the answer to this part. And so I don't know.
And so when is that being published? When is that being published?
That's 8:00 tonight.
Yeah, Ellie's getting better. See, she teased it enough. She gave you enough. She gave you the appetizer. See, when I was younger and I started off, I'd give everything. But well done, Ellie.
Thank you. I wrote it. I hit publish, but then I scheduled it this morning, so it's officially at 8:00 Eastern.
Good job.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, Lev, you look exhausted, and I don't mean to be diss you, but you look like you
I'm
haven't
here.
slept.
I haven't slept since I got off the plane. Since New York, it's been a crazy, wild ride. And it's getting chilly here in Florida, so I got my
Yeah.
sweatshirt on today. So yeah, but
12
first of all,
degrees up here.
yeah, thanks for having me, Waj, Ellie. I mean, I came on to listen to some of the great reporting. I know I also, I support Ellie 100% and
Thank you.
independent journalism because look, folks, a lot of people might not agree or disagree, but facts are facts. I always talk about truth. It doesn't have a side. And a lot of people, just like we'll talk about a little bit what's going on with Michael Cohen, same thing here. People want to believe certain things. And yes, and just like Wash said, stay focused, stay on the truth. We have enough real stuff. What's it called? And that's not to discount any person that got hurt or survived. I don't know enough about the story to comment on it, but I have also spoken because a lot of you have reached out to me and asked me, do I know anything about it? I've spoken not only to Ellie, but other very prominent and independent journalists that have been working on the story, and I could tell you that it's a very, very sad story, very touching issue, is something that it's very difficult. And I praise Ellie for being strong enough to do the right thing. And the right thing is to tell the truth, because sometimes the hardest thing is to just stay quiet and let somebody else do it. And I think it's strength and truth, and everybody else will make their decision. But I commend you, Ellie. I'll be there at 8 o'clock, definitely listening, because I can't wait to hear more about this. And, I think that's what independent journalism is about. Because if I could watch, just tell one quick little story about, and again, not to compare it to anything, and I want to make sure that emphasize that one thing has nothing to the other. But there was, on the far right movement, when we were part of Mega, we had similar movements that were moving around that were very far right, very out there. One of them was called QAnon. I'm saying to you, that basically went ahead and started such a movement that it became a cultish-like environment that, focused on saying that, the Clintons drink blood, that Democrats are child traffickers, all kinds of stuff.
Devil worshippers.
Devil worshippers. I mean, really, really bad stuff. I don't want to take over and just go into it. It's a really bad. And you had really prominent people like Michael Flynn and others in the Republican, in the Republican mega movement that were pushing it. So with that said, you have to be very, very careful with misinformation, disinformation, because part of this right now, where we are, we don't want to get caught up in something where then they could turn around and say, aha, you see, and this and that. We have so much power and truth already on our side that we need to concentrate, keep our focus, keep our blinders on, and make sure. And one of those things is the Epstein Files. I'm sorry, Mike. Trump just went up. He was talking in the fund. I'm sorry about that. But yeah. So Ellie, I look forward to hearing about that also. Can't wait till 8 o'clock. But,
and Lev, let me, now that you hear, if I can, just because, someone reminded me, I thought I had spoken to you a week ago, but someone said it was just 2 days ago. I swear to God. I literally said, I think I spoke to Lev a week ago, and a subscriber of ours goes, bro, that was 2 nights ago. I'm like, oh yeah. What have you heard since then? We talked about, I think you joined us late. We talked about the Epstein Files, Michael Cohen. We talked about Katie Johnson. We talked about Sasha Riley from Ellie's point of view, because the first time I'm talking to Ellie about it. But since the last 2 days, this has blown up. What I've, Midas Touch, I saw that they dropped him. JoJo from Jers, she's dropped him. Apparently, Joe Walsh won't have him. What's happening? Because he still has questions to answer about the Epstein Files.
Oh, no, absolutely. And that's why I haven't slept. I've been on this nonstop. And, I want to make sure a lot of people understand this is not, it's become personal. Yeah, because it's personal, not because it's Michael Cohen, folks. It's personal because it's the Epstein survivors. It's personal about the truth. And it's personal because this man lied for so long to so many people and is trying to do it. So this is what is personal. It's not about, because some people say, oh, are you on left side or are you on Michael's side? It's crazy. This This is not Lev or Michael. This is, are you on the survivor side? Are you on the truth side? Or you want to just listen to some grifter that's giving you some stories? And that's what's been going on. Michael Cohen has been trying to go on this campaign, talking about again that we're all against him, playing the innocent hurt victim. And today he did something completely insane, Waj. I don't know if you guys heard, but he brought on Jesse Jackson Jr. on his show, and they went into yeah. I mean, he brought to talk about why he wrote that letter, but he's such a con artist. Not to talk about that he wrote a letter saying that he's blaming Letitia James and Alvin Bragg, that they coerced him and forced him to do lie, but he brought Jesse Jackson in to say that they're trying to get, this is all being done to get a pardon for 70 million people. And they start talking shit about, it was some crazy wild shit. And I just couldn't believe that there are still people out there that are supporting him, that are out there that are saying it like, I really need to see the truth. I really need to hear the evidence. And I say, yeah, so do we. That's what we're asking. We're not saying he did something. We are saying that we know black and white. Michael Cohen's name is in the Epstein Files. It's not debatable. This is black and white. Nobody planted it there. This is not some operation by Trump or anybody cover up. Just like we keep saying, release the Epstein Files, they're being released. Michael Cohen's there. Boom. Let's stop right there. Michael Cohen, you say there your attorneys mentioned that you have information about Trump and Epstein. Give us the information. That's what we want. So Michael's playing these games. He also came out and mentioned in one of his letters that he reached out to James Comer. Well, Michael's not too bright because I have contacts in James Comer's office also. So he's trying to play it off that he wants to testify and go on the record with James Comer to be able to clean this up. And a lot of people are, oh, Michael, yeah, go on. No, folks. Michael is trying to go on James Comer to testify that he knows nothing about anything. He's going there to say that he got coerced by Letitia James and Al. That is why he's going on the record. Not to talk about the Epstein Files, to give Trump a record on the record so he could go try to get his case dismissed that's in appeals. So what I said, and I was watching that and I had a great idea. So I went live yesterday. I already made some phone calls. So this is what we're going to do, folks. And I need everybody's help. Since Michael Cohen has said he is willing to go on the record and he wants to go under oath, for some reason, I don't know why he just doesn't come out here and tell us what he knows, but he wants to do it on the record. Well, I reached out to Congressman Ro Khanna and everybody else has said, can you please have Michael Cohen come in and have a live testimony in front of Congress and strictly about the Epstein Files? Strictly asking Michael Cohen, what does he know during that time about the letter that he wrote, the Rule 35, about, what is it, that he had it on, during that time? Who is that? Let him explain under oath about the story about the Jane Doe that he says is not Katie Johnson. Let him tell that story under oath. So, do you understand? So what my thing is right now is, so for people to understand, that's all I want. Michael Cohen needs to go under oath. He doesn't want to come out here, doesn't want to face me, doesn't want to face Wajahat Ali, he doesn't want to come out here and tell just what he owes, all the money he's made off all these people grifting. He owes it to each and every one of us to come out and just tell us the truth, what he wants. But if he wants to do it on the record, Michael, I agree with you. I say that's even better. I say we have you on the record for the whole world to see and if he will lie, Greg, 5 years for lying for every time. And believe me, it will catch up to him. And let him lie on the record, but let him come out on the record.
And the reason why I think, again, we don't know, Ellie, but that Jane Doe could be Katie Johnson. And Katie Johnson, again, for those who are joining us, 2,800 people, is the pseudonym of she was once a 13-year-old girl who credibly claims she was raped in the most horrific way by not just Epstein, but also Donald Trump. And who was Donald Trump's fixer? Michael Cohen. Ellie, I actually have Bro Kana on tomorrow at 11:30, unless he bumps me again. If he bumps me again, I'm done with him. It's been three bumps. I'm going to tell his team right now, you bump me one more time, we're done.
He bumped me also. Don't feel bad. I've been bumped also.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get him on.
So my take is this, Ellie, because the Epstein Files, right? There's two things Americans agree on according to the latest polls. Over 80% of Americans, regardless of political affiliation, Ellie and Lev, want the release of the Epstein Files. 84% of Americans do not approve of Donald Trump invading Greenland and blowing up NATO. So I'm like, hey, there's two things most Americans agree on. Shocking in this day and age. But I've been saying for the past 2 weeks, and I've shared this with Lev, we haven't talked in 2 weeks, to corner, right? You have to play a different game. You have to see how Donald Trump and the media works, right? They play the media game. Steve Madden said 10 years ago, the enemy is not Democrats, it's the media. So since they're creatures of media, don't give him an avenue to distract with NATO, Greenland, Venezuela. And yes, folks, it's a distraction and in furtherance of their plan. But they have the Epstein estate, right? Don't the Democrats still have documents from the Epstein estate? And can't they just, I don't know, release some chum in the water that puts them in the back foot? I wanted to share my strategy with you before I talk to Kana about it.
Yes, 100%. And Darren Endike and Richard Kahn, who are, owners of the estate, they are Epstein's accountant and lawyer. They are set to be subpoenaed. They are on the list to be subpoenaed. Again, they're taking their sweet time doing that because Leslie Wexner is supposed to be subpoenaed. But we have seen that they are payable and they are malleable, and they are the ones who gave us the birthday book. They are the ones who gave us all the ban emails and that big trove of emails that we got and all the pictures. Those are all from the Epstein estate. Those were not from the DOJ. So the DOJ has not been like drips and drabs. They've been mostly nothing other than this last batch. They haven't been giving us anything. Whereas the Epstein estate doesn't have as much red tape, doesn't require as much. They can give us the go-to and we can have the whole thing. And my bet is there's a lot more in the Epstein estate than there is in the DOJ. And that's just my personal opinion. But I also think that Ghislaine Maxwell is still in charge of the Epstein estate.
Okay, that makes... All right, so you know what? So see, the Democrats already are sitting on a tranche of documents.
Yeah.
If I were them, I would release something, a chump, just smart strategy. It keeps it in the news. It puts Donald Trump in the back foot. It makes him unnerved. I think we've all seen that clip of him losing his ish and with a small little finger flipping off the UAW worker and saying F you to him, which is, of course, very presidential behavior. Right. We've seen with Michael Cohen, these people get triggered, right? But I do agree with the Ghislaine Maxwell of it all, because Ghislaine Maxwell, Ellie and Lev, I always want to go back to Ghislaine Maxwell, because whenever people say, I don't believe in conspiracy theories, I don't know, I always say, my case, if I had to just choose one piece of evidence to make my case for why this is a cover-up. number one, they haven't released it, even though they're compelled to. But before that, explain to me, Ghislaine Maxwell, Ellie and Lev, why is she in a secret minimum security camp with the best treatment? Ellie?
Well, she had a proffer, which means that she had a little chit chat with Todd Blanche. And she sat down with him and he asked her a bunch of questions that were, in hindsight, they're really easy to prove wrong. But like while she was saying them, they were pretty easy to prove wrong. And he tells her at the beginning of this interview, you have immunity, but not if you perjure yourself. She perjured herself through the entire thing, and there will be no accountability for that. So the way a proffer works, it's kind of a tit for tat. It is, I'm going to give you information on something and you're going to give me benefits. In her case, she got upgraded to a minimum security prison camp. She didn't give him anything. Everything she gave him was things that we already knew. When she started to say things that were of interest, he diverted the question. Like, she was willing to say them and he would divert the question. When she got to talking about Donald Trump, it was so scripted and so robotic. And so, like, everything is fine. He is a good person. I really like him. What a nice man. Moving on. And that was it. That was as much as we got from the situation. And then after the fact, they go, oh, thank you so much for all that stuff. You're so great. Let's move you to a minimum security prison. Like, it was such a ridiculous, money exchanging hands, in my opinion. And that's what's led this whole case. I think she's very much in charge of what is happening in this case. I think she's in charge of all the stuff in the estate. I think she's in charge of where Epstein's money has gone, because she got secretly married in 2016, and then the money exchanged hands to her husband, and then he divorced her supposedly, but there's no records of any of this. And then the money just kind of moved down the line. So I think she is really in control of much of what's happening. And I always question if it's Donald Trump who's making the decisions or if it's her.
Wow.
Ellie's so on the dot. A lot of people forget that she knew Donald Trump had a relationship with her before he had any relationship with Epstein.
Which is every character in this story.
Right.
Every character.
He's known her since she was 18 years old, working as an intern at, when her father, if you remember, owned what was it, the Daily News, I think, at the time?
The Daily Mirror. The Mirror.
And then, so she, a lot of people forget. That's the same thing with Michael Cohen. And, time goes by and people forget what really happens, and Trump himself. That's why people forget who Donald Trump really was, back in the 90s and the 80s, those video clips that we watch, that we see, that is who he was. And this is the people he hung out with. And the fact that, we're still even debating this stuff, that's what I'm saying to you. This is not like, some accusations. A lot of the stuff is black and white. Folks, this is, just think about it. You had a 13-year-old girl go out there and file a criminal investigation naming Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. If you ever, it is very hard to read. It's hard to even listen to her. But if you ever have a chance that you really want to, please read it. Take a look. This is a 13-year-old girl, right? This is not somebody that's in their 30s or 40s that could make up a story like that.
Right.
You can't even make up a story like that. The details that she writes about what transpired, how it transpired, everything that went down, and to have the courage to go ahead and do it and go out there and file a complaint, and then miraculously in 2016, right when Donald Trump's running for president, when Michael Cohen is out there saying, I'm willing to take a bullet for this guy, and is his number one fixer, all of a sudden she disappears. Right. She pulls back her testimony. So, folks, this is personal. And for those of you that think it's not, it's very personal. And he has some explaining to do, and so does Donald Trump and all these people. Don't let them distract you from it. Yeah, and Ghislaine Maxwell, absolutely. Maxwell. Listen, Maxwell, and that's what we're saying. She was more of a player in this whole thing than Epstein was when it came. She introduced him probably to with Trump and all of that. She was as linked to that world, a lot of that world, even, to the, Prince Andrew and all of that type of stuff. So Maxwell, I think one day we're going to find out that was even more, like Ellie says. I wouldn't be surprised that she's still run, because one of the things that some of my sources said also back in the day when that letter, remember that when that picture came out of that, of the birthday in the book where people were saying that was Maxwell. Now people understand that was Maxwell's. That's, if you remember, that's what started all of a sudden Blanche going to see her and they're getting transferred. And then we've seen the actual book come out right now in the Epstein, right? They sent more stuff out in the Epstein dump.
The entire book was published, which then corroborates Wall Street Journal's initial reporting. Word for word of his lewd comment and the lewd drawing. And folks, I want to remind you all that each time Donald Trump he's been asked twice on camera whether or not he will pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. He has not said no. And she has angled nearly every month. First, she went to the Supreme Court, but she's been angling for a commutation. And you better believe, folks, like I've said, that if she's sitting there in prison and seeing George Santos get pardoned, the ex-president of Honduras get pardoned, all these launderers and fraudsters getting pardoned, CZ, his business partner, getting pardoned. Do you think Ghislaine Maxwell is going to sit 20 years in prison? Hell no. So and the fact that he hasn't said no to that pardon, if he's desperate enough, Ellie, and it has the type of damning information, not just on Donald Trump, but all these other players, countries, institutions, potential world leaders, why wouldn't he pardon her? Why wouldn't he pardon her? I have to leave in 2 minutes, but before I do, real quick, what have you heard of what's happening in his meltdown in Davos right now?
Davos, he's actually going on his way to Davos. He just had a whole like a 2-hour speech about, before he goes, how we are the greatest country in the world. But basically, I just want to say very importantly, Greenland, from what I'm hearing inside, again, I'm not not 100%, but it's a major distraction. He's not sending any troops in. This is all to distract from what is really going on back here in the States, which is the Insurrection Act, which is planning on doing. He's getting ready on doing that. And what I'm hearing, which we're going to talk about later, I just got off the phone with Joy's producer also. Very much more I'm hearing today that there's a major case being built on Don Lemon. And other people inside of, and that is that's what the main story that's going to be built up right now. This is a distraction while that's taking place in Minnesota.
Well, that's a distraction too. It's all bullshit.
No, that's all. I agree with you. But, unfortunately, a lot of people are going to go through, it's that bullshit. I went, you got to get lawyers. You got to get, it's, and they're trying to charge them with all kinds of crazy 1860 laws.
Base Act.
It's great. It's crazy stuff. And the one thing I did hear is there's a major push from and Trump actually mentioned him right now while he was making a speech. He came out and said, Don Lemon, something to the fact that if he thinks he could walk into that church, he has something coming to him. We need to gear up, and this is where we need to make our voices loud because Minnesota is just an example. Folks, don't worry. We're not going to World War III. Davos is a major distraction. It's important. Again, I want to make it clear, because some people say, well, isn't that everything is important? Ukraine is important. Venezuela is important. All of these things we're discussing, all of them are important, but none of them, just like Wash said, as crazy as they are important, even the fact that they are looking into the prosecuting today, they subpoenaed the Attorney General of Minnesota, and they're looking to prosecuting them to cover up the shooting and the murder of a victim. Just think about the crazy part, what's happening. So this is all distractions played out to be to make sure that the Epstein files never see the light of day, that they are cleared up, which is why we have to make sure that we keep our voices loud and clear. And two is that, and he said it more than once, he wants to get rid of the elections, and he's doing everything he possibly can because he understands, and he spoke it very clearly to all of his people. I'm sorry, Wash, and he said that if we have elections and we lose, they're going to impeach me. So he knows, and they're doing everything about it. So that's what I hear, and folks.
And that's why, and that's why they're getting more desperate, because it's all projection. Every accusation is a confession. They're freaking out. Elon Musk is freaking out, and they're trying to rally their base, saying, see, they're going to hold us accountable. See, they said they're going to imprison us. See, they say there's going to be investigation. To which I say, yes. Democrats run on affordability and accountability. Jen Welch, that's why they hate Jen Welch. Jen Welch came on and said, there better be accountability. And Elon Musk, I'm like, look at that. This is why, folks, according to this Reuters article that we've mentioned before in our chats, the Trump administration has threatened to sanction the ICC unless the ICC guarantees that they will not investigate any member of the Trump administration. Now, does an innocent person threaten to sanction preemptively the ICC if they have, spent the last year criming? So I think Democrats have to run on accountability, and the best way to hold them accountable is to use the weapon. The weapon that you have at your disposal is the Epstein Files, which is his Achilles cankel. Over 80% of Americans want it. He's radicalized his base. Thank God there's one thing that is too disgusting even for most Americans to look over, which is the mass rape of girls over 2 decades and the sex trafficking of girls. And the Republicans have radicalized their own base. They thought they could pull a fast one over their base. They radicalized them with QAnon, and they promised them the release of the Epstein Files. And then Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel looked at the Epstein Files, saw that their king and daddy and boss is all up in it. And then Kash Patel said, nothing to see.
By the way, quick, did you hear that Raskin, and I applaud him, on the floor has said that they're going to go after Dan Bongino.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah. A couple of days ago. Yeah, a couple of days ago, I'll send you the video of it. Raskin on the floor came out and said that, they are going to Bongino needs to answer why he left abruptly right before the release of the Epstein Files. So yeah,
and you know what?
Yeah, we
absolutely. You got to impeach. No, do hearings, get these people on the record. I'm telling you, folks, the Epstein Files, everything is important. You all watch The Left Hook. Everything is important. I will still say the biggest club that you have to think strategically. The biggest club that you still have, and I hate saying it this way, is the Epstein Files. And you got to swing it, and you'll get accountability, and you'll bring down not just Donald Trump, you'll bring on this entire cabal of people. And if you think that, you're so cynical, I will end on a kind of an example of what we began with. There is a reason why Prince Andrew is now known only as Andrew. Ellie and Lev, I got to go for another. I've been going from 1 to 6. I got the great Jess Craven coming on. I know what's wrong with me. I'm an idiot. I said yes to everyone. I'm an idiot. But before we go, Ellie, shamelessly promote yourself.
All right. I am on Substack as the Panicked Writer. I'm going to be releasing a piece on Sasha Riley tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. And you can find me everywhere else on social media at Red Pencil Script.
And 8 p.m., folks, 8 p.m. tonight Eastern time, Ellie's going to go on the Panicked Writer and talk to you about what she's found out and discovered about Sasha Riley.
Actually, it'll be an article. I'm not going to go on it.
An article. And, I think it's smart because please just trust me, err on the side of caution and facts. Always. And by being truthful and honest, you end up protecting the victims. And whenever there is a bunk story, it only hurts the victims because people say, see, how can you trust the 1,000 girls based on that one person? So Ellie will tell you what she found out. It's at 8 p.m. It's being dropped. Lev, go ahead. Promote yourself.
Quickly, Waj has to go. LevRemembers.com, guys, here at Substack, and we are on a mission to save our democracy, and only truth matters. So your support matters more than anything. Love you guys. Take care.
Thank you, Waj.
And folks, this is Ellie has a special. Lev, it's all, we have no paywalls, but we're all doing a New Year's special. $3.75 levtug.substack.com/special. Ellie has a special $3.75. Thank you all for watching. For those who tuned in late, 3400, this will be up on my Substack, Ellie's Substack, and Lev's Substack. And Ellie does fantastic work breaking down the Epstein Files. And Lev only, and I will give credit to Lev on this, which is important, because people say, going back to exactly what Ellie said, Lev only goes on with me, texts me when he confirms it. So sometimes he says, let me confirm it, wait. But then if he doesn't confirm it, he doesn't come on. But whenever we go live, that's only when Lev confirms it. And so far from the summer, the batting average is 1,000. So thank you all for joining us. I'm on with Jess Craven in 1 minute. Jess Craven is fantastic. Chop wood, carry water, progressive activist, grassroots activist. I'm going to jump off and I'm going to jump on with her. Everyone jump on. She's fantastic. She'll tell you how they resisted ICE. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Lev.
Bye, Waj. Bye, Lev. Bye.